Hey guys, today I'm out in Michigan with the Buick Envista and the Buick Encore GX, the two least expensive Buicks in North America. And honestly, two of the best new car values in North America, with the lead certainly going to the Envista over here, but I'll talk more about that in a bit. If you're interested in a sleek, sexy profile, you want the Envista, also a lower sticker price. This comes in under $25,000 for the base version, well under $25,000 in fact. Mid-level trim is actually $25,000 on the Envista. And the Encore GX over here, this is the Buick for you if you want all-wheel drive. It is not standard, but it is available, and it's not available on the Envista. If you want a continuously variable automatic transmission, that's going to be over here in the front-wheel drive models. 6-speed automatic, that's over here in the Envista. You can see that the front-end designs are pretty similar. We get a lot of the same styling cues with this actually sort of Hyundai Kona-like look up front. The new Buick logo, very prominent right there in the front. Definitely a lower hood line in the Envista because this is trying to be sportback meets hatchback meets sedan. But very similar design cues. These LED accent lights are also the turn signals. We get LED headlights down there. Bit more chrome over here in the Encore, bit more of a traditional crossover look. And that crossover look continues as we move around to the side. You'll notice this has a more upright presence, a more boxy appearance as well. We get roof rails on top. We get the same trim lines in all three vehicles, preferred, ST, and the Avenir trim. So if you get the ST trim, we get the shiny black wheel arches, shiny black trim at the bottom of the door. If you get the Avenir trims of both, then we have body color components. That certainly gives it a bit more of a sleek and modern look. Back here we have a more traditional hatch with the windshield wiper. Definitely more vertical glass there in the rear, and a cargo area that is a little bit bigger than the one in the Envista, but mainly it's a slightly different shape, I would actually say. By the numbers, this does come across as a little bit bigger, but it's mostly boxier. Now, if we move back around to the Envista, you want to get the Envista if you remember Buick sedans of yore and you want something a bit smaller and easier to park. You'll certainly notice that this has a very sedan-like profile, something that Buick is not running away from. They're actually embracing. So no roof rails back here, roofline that really slants down towards the rear, and then a rear hatch glass that is certainly more horizontal than vertical. No rear windshield wiper back there. Very similar clean look to the rear end. These are LED accent lights. They're not turn signals or brake lights. Brake lights and turn signals are actually down here and they're incandescent. I was surprised by that. If we pop open this hatch, power hatch is available. It's in the top end Avenir trim. Then you'll see that we do have a reasonable amount of cargo space back here. And which is right for you will depend on the shape of your cargo. This cargo area is a little bit longer than the one in the Encore GX because the Envista is actually about 10 inches longer overall. It also has a longer wheelbase, and you will really notice that if I hop inside. Going into the rear passenger compartment with this front seat adjusted for me at 6 feet tall, I have a pretty decent amount of legroom left. This is one of the few very small vehicles in North America where you could put a child seat behind someone 6 foot tall in the rear facing position and still have enough room. Headroom, however, that is a little bit more limited. If I put my head back to the headrest, it's just barely touching the ceiling back there, and in the front I have about 3/4 of an inch left. Now if we move over to the Envista, if we move over to the Encore, Buick's naming scheme does leave for a little bit of confusion, I will say. The names seem awfully close sometimes in my head. If we move over here, then you'll notice a few things right away. The first thing, less legroom, obviously. So that seat is certainly a bit closer. If I scoot over, you will also notice that we get a driveline hump because of the availability of all-wheel drive. And that's going to be there whether you get all-wheel drive or not. Whereas in the Envista, like the Chevy Trax, it has a flat floor in the back. Neither of these vehicles has air vents in the back. I do think that's a bit of a misstep there to not have air vents in the back of these vehicles. The rear seats are pretty comfy. We have a shoulder belt that comes out of the center in both vehicles. Nice wide armrest in both vehicles. The rear seats actually feel very, very similar, but we get more headroom generally speaking in here. If I put my head back there to the headrest, you can see I have about an inch. My head's not brushing against anything. This certainly has a roomier feel when it comes to headroom, but not when it comes to legroom. The reason I like the shoulder belt coming out of the seat itself is that the ceiling doesn't have a weird bulge in it, makes the cargo area more practical. It also means that if you have to put a child seat here in the center using the shoulder belt, it's going to be much more centered. The interior design is pretty similar between the two. We get the same steering wheel with the same buttons on the front and on the back, And we now get the same two-screen infotainment and instrument cluster on the dashboard, with an 8-inch screen for the instrument cluster and an 11-inch screen for the middle. I have to say that in harsh light, these screens are a little bit difficult to see, and in some lighting conditions, you can really get the bezels to be very accentuated. You can see how large those bezels are on the side. Kind of gives me maybe a 1960s horn-rimmed glasses or a Hanna-Barbera vibe going on there. The air vents and climate controls, those are different between the two vehicles, as is the shifter and the center console design. Hopping into the Envista, we get what I think might be a little bit more of a modern design, especially with some of the materials over there on the passenger side. Now, this model has a very, very dark interior, so it's a bit difficult to see all the detail. We get basically the same two-screen setup right there in the middle of the dashboard. We get different climate controls, however. This has more toggle switches in the middle. Pretty traditional shifter again, but a slightly different design. The seats are also a little bit different in terms of the design between these two vehicles. The Encore has an all 3-cylinder lineup. You get either a 1.2-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder producing 137 horsepower or a 1.3-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder producing 155. There are two different transmissions. All front-wheel drive models get a CVT, continuously variable automatic transmission, with either engine choice. If you get all-wheel drive, then you get a 9-speed automatic transmission. But when they moved the drivetrain over to the Envista, they decided not to go with either transmission. Instead, we get a 6-speed automatic transmission, and you can only get the 1.2-liter turbo. The 1.3 is not offered. If you don't need all-wheel drive, then the Envista is quite simply a better deal. This vehicle starts at $23,495, the Encore GX at $25,900. You get the same engine, but you get different transmissions. The Encore GX is going to have a continuously variable automatic transmission. This is going to have the 6-speed automatic standard. I admit that when I first saw the spec sheet, I was a little bit down on the 6-speed automatic, but I think it's actually a better companion to this engine than the 9-speed automatic transmission or the CVT that we find in the Encore GX. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Buick decided to swap the 6-speed into this model. It has a more engaging feel to it, and I think it makes the most out of the engine as well. It certainly is going to satisfy some shoppers that aren't really fans of CVTs. Fuel economy is honestly very similar between the two models, but you can get a bit more power in the Encore GX. Optional is the 1.3-liter turbo, which is not only more fuel efficient, it also is a little bit more powerful. 0 to 60 times, however, are honestly going to be pretty similar if you get the Encore GX all-wheel drive, the top-end trim, or the top-end trim of the Envista. If my money were on the line, it would be Envista all the way, because it's simply less expensive, and I think it's a slightly better package when it comes to the value proposition as well. We get that more practical rear seat that's a bit more roomy when it comes to the legroom. We get that flat floor in the back. We get a cargo area that's a little bit longer and I think a little bit more convenient as well. Let me know what you think about all that. Do you really want all-wheel drive? Do you not like the CVT that's in the Encore GX? That's another reason to get the Envista. And then of course, check out the related videos because I will have complete videos on both of these on the channel coming up very soon.